Hey Oberon, I have a couple of friends who are all getting divorced. It's a little sad to see, and one of the reasons is because of the agreements that they began their relationships with that then weren't being honored. What happens when you find out that the person you're married to or have been married to for several years is having an affair? And what's worse and what's better, that versus just a relationship that's kind of almost run its course because the agreements aren't really being honored and people aren't really feeling loved? I don't know if it's worse to have your partner cheating on you or if it's worse to find out that your partner just doesn't want to be with you anymore. I suppose that they're both, terrible, terribly painful, but, there's situations that are just no fun. Hi, this is Oberon and I'm KALYN, and if you want, you can call me a life consultant. I often call myself your abundance coach because I love helping people and talking about money and relationship and business and growing any of these. So in a way, I really am a life consultant. I am the co-owner of Living in the Flow system, which is a system to help you get in the flow, help you shift your energy, help you change your mind, so that you can change your life and you could tap into the richness of life. Today we're talking about the richness of love and of how to have a better relationship. Because one of the most common questions I get, and one of the things that people most often want to talk to me about, is love. They want to know how to attract a relationship. And so I think it's real important to look at this. The truth is, we've all already had relationships that haven't worked out. Now, we can blame certain things, the person, their habits. We can blame all sorts of things for the relationship not working out. And maybe it wasn't the right relationship for us. But one of the best ways to make sure that your next relationship is a good relationship, one of the best ways to help you attract a great relationship, is to understand some of the agreements. Oberon wants you to know that agreements are almost like the contracts, if you will, that we initially set up with people. They're completely, really non-verbal, and they certainly have nothing to do with signing off on an agreement, but they might as well, in the sense that they are the way that a friendship or a relationship begins, and they are then what is expected of the other person and of yourself in that relationship. So Oberon says that one of the problems with my friend that had an affair is that he really felt like the agreements weren't being honored. He felt like he had to go somewhere else to be loved. Now, there's no judgment from Oberon, and certainly not from myself, as to, was that the right thing to do? Was that the wrong thing to do? Was that mean? Was that, we can go on and on. We're not judging it. We're just saying that the agreements were broken, that within the relationship, and they were married for several years, he just wasn't feeling loved. In some ways, I think that she wasn't either, but it was different for her. What she wanted out of the relationship, she, I think, was getting more so. See, the original agreement was that they would love each other. When we come together in relationships, whether they're heterosexual or homosexual, because I always talk about relationships just as the gender flows, a masculine flow and a feminine flow, which tends to be present in just about every relationship, regardless of what physical gender people are. What happens when we come together in relationship is that we feel like we're going to be understood, we feel like we're going to be loved, we feel like we have someone we can open up to and trust, especially in the relationships that get deep enough to get into a marriage. But what happens years later when you're not feeling loved? What happens years later when you feel like this has been going on and on for a couple of years, and day in and day out you think that the other person will make time for you, or will look at you lovingly, or will make you a priority, but it doesn't happen? And you say, well, they're busy with work, right, Oberon? Maybe next month when their work's over. And then they say, well, they've got this thing going on in their family. Maybe their parent died, maybe this, maybe that. So maybe they'll be able to focus on me more next month. Well, it can go on forever. At some point, often people just kind of go, no more well. I'm out. I'm empty. I'm not being loved. And at that point, they either do leave the relationship or they might have an affair, looking for love. We all need to be loved. And Oberon says that when you come to a relationship with a different kind of agreement, you agree with yourself and your partner, but you agree that you're really going to make the other person a priority, that you're really going to love the other person from your heart. That changes everything. Now, Oberon wants me to point out to you that a lot of people think that they're, that they meet what Oberon's talking about. They think that they do have that love for the other person. And Oberon says, think it over twice, because if your relationship isn't everything that you would like for it to be, or if you're single and your last relationships didn't work out, it might very well be because you're not really looking at this. You think you're being loving, but you're not. Unfortunately, one thing that breaks my heart a little to see is a lot of the times women will tell me that they want to attract a man in their lives, but at a deeper level, they're a little afraid to. Either they are afraid of losing control in their lives, they're afraid of someone telling them what to do, whatever the fear may be based out of. Sometimes it's a little deeper. They really want to have a relationship, and at the same time, they kind of put the brakes on. That's not a healthy agreement. Now, I have a girlfriend who did that. She met a guy, she was crazy about him, and frankly, he seemed pretty crazy about her. They went to a party together, but not together, but they spent time, and they had a great time. They went out and talked afterwards. So then they had a fabulous date. The date ended with them ending the night with a nightcap at his place and everything that goes with a naked nightcap, as you can imagine. Now, the question comes forth, right, Oberon? Is it okay to have sex on the first date? Well, Oberon says, it depends. It depends on you. We live by the law of self, and the law of self says that there's no one out there who can tell you. The only person who can tell you is you. So she really needed to stop and look at what was right for her. Now, the problem is, in the next morning, she woke up and she was sort of saying that she didn't want it to be a one-night fling, and honestly, she got a little dramatic. I want to make sure you're going to like me, and I don't want this to have just been a one-night stand. Well, it's kind of too late. She already went into it with something else. And for a first date that lasted half a day, well, it's sort of a bad way to end the date. You're putting in some agreements, right, Oberon, that you're up for a great time, sex, and then a little drama. That's then how you start the relationship. So I want you to really think hard about how you start relationships. What agreements you bring forward, because at that point, you're making an agreement, my girlfriend's making an agreement with her date that she's not really in for something that is not dramatic. She's not really in for something that has different things put into it. It's not that sex was the wrong move, it's that being dramatic about it sets the agreements off in a different course. It says this isn't really the substance of a long-term relationship. This is the substance of quick sex and quick drama. If that's what you want, that's fine. Now, you can have an incredible spark, a real heart connection, incredible conversations, end up in bed, and then wake up in the morning and go right back into the incredible. It works. Personally, once upon a time, many years ago, right, Oberon, I met my husband, and we had our dates, and we slept together, I don't remember, because it was 17 years ago. But we slept together pretty quickly. We didn't wait a long time, but we had wonderful conversations. We had a lot of things that we connected on, and we really delved deep into those, not into what's wrong and are you going to call me and, just things like that. And, oh, should I tell her or him about the last person? That shouldn't come into your new relationship. Make an agreement with yourself so that you then make an agreement when you start your next relationship to come from your heart, to come from a place of your own love. When you are willing to open your heart and really share honor that agreement and really share your heart, then everything changes, right, Oberon? Oberon says at that point, you're comfortable and confident, spreading your wings and showing the other person how beautifully you fly. They may fly with you, they may not, but you set yourself off on beautiful, romantic, loving flights. And at that point, Oberon says, if that bird doesn't fly with you, he says you'll find another. You know how birds are. Everything has to be a bird metaphor. But he says that way you'll reach higher heights, you'll go longer distances, and you'll find a much better flock. Right, Oberon? So think twice about your agreements, because that way you can start a date on a different note. You can start a relationship on a different note. Now, of course, the same is also true for business and in your life with your money. So join us in some future videos so that we could talk to you about some things you want to look for to make sure that you start your money agreements or your business agreements on a very different note, so that you will ensure that you're living more of what you really prefer, more of what is a priority to you. You'll be living by the law of self, which means you'll be feeling like you're honoring yourself more, and thus the universe will seem to honor you more as well. Thanks for joining, and please do consider subscribing and hitting like for us.